Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. I know so many people love Tucker Carlson. I know this video is more than likely going to get me a great deal of hate, but nevertheless, I've got to say what I want to say, especially when it comes down to what Tucker said to Piers Morgan in his interview the other week. And because to me, it's important about facts, about truth, and about reality. And while I agree with some things that Tucker Carlson says, there are some things that I disagree with him on. Like, I think that's the same for pretty much everyone, right? Like, I know people are going to disagree with me on certain things, and that's totally fine. I believe that I've lost many subscribers with some of my viewpoints on things, and the ones that are faithful and actually mature enough to move past a disagreement, they will continue to follow on because for the most part, I believe that I make sense to many of the followers that choose to regularly tune in. And it same goes for Tucker Carlson, right? Same goes for Candace Owens. You don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, as the saying goes, meaning you can have disagreements with people. You don't cancel them entirely. And I'm not for cancel culture at all. I think you need to do away with cancel culture, in my personal opinion. But the comments that Tucker Carlson made to Piers Morgan about Winston Churchill and about the West and how the West isn't exactly free. And, well, the West doesn't really have many freedoms because of things that are going on. And then he said it was because of World War II. And I'm going, you're trying to make a comparison with a time period and a person that's no longer alive, and that the time period has got nothing to do with the time period now. It's a very dishonest, a very stupid kind of, would you even want to call it an argument? I don't really call it an argument at all, because what's going on in the UK today has everything to do with the current leaders of today, the current corrupt leaders of today. And apparently I got pillared in the last video that I made because I said that Piers Morgan ripped Tucker Carlson a new one, or roast Tucker Carlson, and everyone's going, no, Tucker Carlson roast Piers Morgan. And I'm just like, look, it was for the title's sake. I get it. Both of them didn't roast anyone. Like they were both just as bad as each other. Okay. And I think people kind of get caught up on the titles of videos rather than the actual information within the video itself. Like I find it funny. I know it's the first point of call, but whenever I see a title and I click on the title, I'm automatically going, well, I know that this video is probably not going to be like the title suggests. So anyway, it got me to click on the video. It's called creativity. But the reason why I made that video is to try and it's a very dishonest argument. And I don't like people like Tucker Carlson that have a huge platform like he does, talking about how, number one, he doesn't like war, but then accuses Churchill of committing atrocities. And like, it's saying that people in Britain don't have their freedoms today because of Churchill. You can't blame Churchill for what's going on today. Like, and then he's going, Churchill didn't win anything. He didn't save the West. He didn't save Poland. He didn't do anything. But the problem is you've got some very, very dishonest arguments and dishonest points that Tucker Carlson is making. And it really stems from last year. He had on a pseudo-historian. I guess you could call Daryl Cooper a pseudo-historian, meaning that he's not really a historian. And he angered a lot of people, but crazy enough, there were so many people that actually latched on to what Daryl Cooper was saying and what Tucker Carlson was saying. And Tucker dishonestly said that he is one of the most profound and important, I believe it was, historians around. He's not a historian. He's a pseudo liar and somebody that you can't really trust with actual facts, because Daryl Cooper said that Winston Churchill was the real enemy and the real villain of World War II. That to me is insane. And Tucker, during the Piers Morgan debate, and credit to Piers Morgan where it's due, he pointed out, like, he's free because if it wasn't for what Winston Churchill did, sure, there were things that needed to take place, and they did take place with America entering Australia all these things taking place for us to be able to win the war, for democracy to be able to win the war. You don't want the nut job Hitler to win, and the world, like I said in the other video, would look entirely different if the Nazis had won. But you've got people today that I find it's rather concerning. They hate Churchill. You've got the left and the right, seemingly. People in the left and the right hate Churchill. The left hates Churchill because of what he stood for, and the right hates Churchill because of what he did. And I'm like, you just can't win nowadays. You got a good man. It's like Abraham Lincoln was pillared all the time for trying to stop slavery. They went into a civil war, for goodness sake, because of it. It's nuts. But you had people back then, they were fighting each other over slavery. And now you've got people, once again, fighting, or albeit verbally, over something that I'm just going, you guys are so ungrateful. You would not be having the conversation or the dialogue, Tucker Carlson, with Piers Morgan, if the Nazis had won. How dare you attack Winston Churchill today? How dare you go after somebody that helped us save democracy? Like, that is crazy to me. Now, I want to point out Konstantin Kisin, because he created a brilliant video, and everyone should see it, why they hate Churchill. I'll link it in the show description below, but I want to point out a couple of things that Konstantin says that I think is brilliant. And I always appreciate Konstantin's take on all things. I really do, because he's a very smart, intellectual individual, and Tucker has actually attacked and gone after Konstantin before, and Konstantin's just going, I have no time for silly debates with people that have no interest in really debating, because Tucker, he acts so childish sometimes. I know that's probably his personality, but imagine having a debate with him. Like, you had the conversation with Piers and him, and it just was like this circular annoyance of just, I got absolutely nothing except from Tucker hating on Churchill and then blaming Churchill for the current Western civilization's problems. It's like the guy, to me, doesn't seem like he's well. Probably that's going to get me in a lot of trouble for saying that, but he doesn't seem very well, and neither does Piers sometimes, with him going after Tommy Robinson. Anyway, this is what Konstantin says. As regular readers will recall, I've written occasionally about a faction of the right which operates in a manner increasingly resembling the woke left. There is much debate about me labeling this group the woke right, with plenty of agreement and disagreement from people I like and respect. Mainly these arguments stem from what one understands wokeness to mean. If being woke is being an extreme leftist obsessed with pronouns and open borders, the term woke right is nonsense. But to me, at least, wokeness was never about policy positions. It was about the philosophy and methodology behind the movement. And it is this, the identity politics, grievance, mongering, and cancel culture. This is now being replicated on the fringe of the right. In any case, even those who disagree with the label can't possibly think it's a coincidence that this faction of the right is attempting to destroy the very same historical figures as the woke left. Winston Churchill has been the subject of leftist attacks for decades for obvious reasons, since the entire project of the woke left is to undermine the West's belief in itself. They must necessarily target the people we celebrate the most. Whoever we hold up as the best of us must be torn down. Why would some on the right who are otherwise patriotic and pro-Western increasingly attempt to denigrate his legacy, as Tucker Carlson did over the weekend in a debate with Piers Morgan? Even though the clip is only 40 seconds long, there is much to unpack. Before we do, however, it is important to recall that last year, Tucker Carlson hosted a pseudo-historian on his show called Daryl Cooper, which I mentioned a moment ago. In that episode, Carlson famously endorsed Cooper as the best and most honest popular historian in the United States, which is problematic. Before nodding along as a historian, explained that Churchill was the chief villain in World War II. My point is, Carlson's performance in the clip you just watched, well, you can watch it on your own time, my friends, is the product of an extensive ideological evolution rather than the off-the-cuff remark made in the heat of the moment. So that being, there's something sinister going on behind the scenes. If you're being told that, look, Churchill is not the villain, he is in fact the hero, but you go, no, he is the villain, and you're told and you're shown evidence, and still that person goes, nah, he's the villain. That to me goes, you've got an agenda behind what you're doing. And that's problematic because Tucker has a huge audience. People listen to him. He's even got access to Trump as well. So if Tucker's got access to Trump, he's got access to all these famous people, and he is saying things like this, it is problematic, to say the least. Carlson explains that Churchill was no hero because he didn't save Western civilization. If he had, where is it? We're living in Western civilization right now. It's not perfect. I know it needs a lot of changes, and it happens, but it's not Churchill's fault. As we've discussed previously, much of the animus behind what I call the woke right is understandably frustration at the sense of decline in Western self-confidence, a growing feeling of disunity, and a generalized moral decay that is palpable wherever you go. While the woke left hates the West for its ideals, the woke right hates the West for failing to live up to them. It's problematic, if you ask me. So Carlson has admitted to two logical errors. First, the idea that a man who led Britain into World War II a full 85 years ago should be held responsible for the state of the country today is insanity. That's exactly what I've been saying before Konstantin made this exact point. I said it in my first video, and I'm saying it again. It's honestly insanity. You can't make that claim. There's no comparison at all. FDR, America's president during World War II, is widely regarded as one of America's top three presidents, alongside George Washington and Abraham Lincoln. But where is the victory? I can just as easily screech. What about the southern border, which has been wide open for decades? Did Washington fight the War of Independence so half-naked drug addicts could litter the streets of America's major cities? Did Lincoln win the Civil War just to have mentally ill children mutilated by doctors? This approach is patently absurd. Second, finally, just ending it on this, the reason we celebrate Churchill is that the choice we had was either World War II or Hitler being in charge of Europe and possibly the world, which you don't want. The guy was a madman. The victory is that by 1945, Western Europe was free of the tyranny and ethnic hatred the Nazis had imposed on it. In failing to understand this, Tucker does exactly what the woke left do to our history. They imagine an infinite array of utopian possibilities and then deride our former leaders for failing to deliver said utopia. Churchill didn't have a choice between the land of milk and honey or fighting Hitler. He could either fight Hitler or let him take all of Europe. This is so obvious that an intelligent person like Tucker cannot possibly have missed it by accident, which makes it all the more reason for me to go, there's something sinister going on. Why else would he claim that Churchill is the villain? Why else would he say that Churchill did nothing to help democracy or help the West? It's intellectual dishonesty and it's insanity all the same, and that just shows there's an agenda behind it, and I don't like it. So wherever possible, it's our job to call out dishonest arguments. I'd expect the same thing from you guys. I would expect the exact same thing if I lied or if I had a dishonest argument as well. Point it out. Leave comments. Make videos go viral and make your point. as to why this video that is currently going viral is wrong. Why this person is wrong. That's the whole point of democracy. If Hitler had won, we wouldn't have been able to have this democratic debate. Tucker wouldn't have been sitting down with peers. It wouldn't have just been conducted in German. You wouldn't have been alive, more than likely. So many things had to take place in order for us to be here today. Not many people realize that. Certain events had to take place. And it's amazing how you've got people like Tucker that sit there and go, nah, Churchill failed this, this, and this. He's not perfect, but guess what? You wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him. You wouldn't be here if America didn't enter into the war last minute, which again is nuts because Churchill was begging the then president, hey, we need you, please. And it was only after like the bombing of Pearl Harbor did they go, oh, okay. It took Pearl Harbor for the Americans to wake up and realize, oh, there's actually a war going on. And if we don't join in, then maybe we might be taken over as well. It's just, there's people out there that I think need some serious help and they need to be woken up to significant realities. But anyway, why do they hate Churchill? Because I believe personally they hate themselves. They hate democracy as a whole. They hate Churchill because he didn't do the things they wanted him to do, which was, they're more than happy to say, democracy wasn't free. Democracy is not free. You don't have freedom, but we do. A lot more. Yes, we need to change a few things. But these people that go after historical figures like Churchill, they're just as bad as the ones that want cancel culture. They're the ones that claim cancel culture is needed because they're trying to cancel out a historical figure. And they blame him. It's nuts. Anyway, that's enough from me. You guys take care, be blessed, and I'll see you all in the next video.